What in your life has been the most enjoyable? What have you liked about your life the most?
Okay, I've already got the answer.
Okay.
Oh, are you asking me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, well, Mike, it was having you and raising you. That was, I feel, my best accomplishment. I could never get any better than that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think it's picking you up fine.
Okay.
So, of course, it was me, was the best part of your life. I
Yeah.
mean, that just goes almost without saying, Mom. But
Right.
so, was there anything else other than me that you really enjoyed about your life?
Well, I enjoyed, not school as school, but I enjoyed the athletics in school, which I wouldn't have had any access to if I hadn't been going to school, you know. And that was a big part of my life. I made my letter, you know, and maybe that's why my health is still, you know, as good as it is and stuff.
Remind me what you did again? Was it running or jumping or what?
No, it wasn't any one thing. I wasn't a participant in one thing. It was an all-around thing. Like, I played hockey with the hockey team. I played basketball with the basketball team, volleyball. So I just played in all those and things, and we used to go to different schools and play them, and you'd get time off from school, you know, to go do that. So that was an enjoyable part of school. That was probably that and recesses and my friends, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't really scholastically, and I mean, well, I took a secretarial course, which was stupid. I never used it. I learned to take shorthand and all that because the woman across the street from my mother worked in an office, and she dressed up real nice every day. And Mother just thought that was the most wonderful thing because, I mean, her sisters and her went to packing houses and stuff like that. So she sold me on an office job. And when I worked in the office, probably the first couple years were good. But after that, I just really hated it and had to leave and go back and be an operator.
Is that the telephone company at the business office?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were growing up, what did you imagine you would be? What were you imagining you would work in an office or?
No, I thought I'd be married and raise kids, and that's what I intended to do, but it just never worked like that. I got you. Thank God the best one came first, but we don't know what else was down there, you know, could be bubbling up that never got a chance. But anyway, I was glad to have you, and you were a good baby.
So, I think I might have asked you this one already. Yeah, like what would you have been if you could have done anything?
A shepherdess, yeah. Yeah, I would love to have been a shepherdess. It still sounds good. I mean, I can't do it now with my legs and stuff like that. But that would be my choice now, too. It just seems like it's nice to be out in the air with your flock. And especially since I think the pecan trees over there where Bev used to live, they say that that's where the flocks, the shepherds all gathered under that. I mean, it just looks very inviting. Pam was saying that there was a need for shepherdesses. Of course, I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, no, it's a job that they have to get people from outside the country to come in and do because it's so isolated.
Yeah.
You know, people work 7 days a week, you know, all the time, and
Yeah, but all the things you're saying, it's isolated.
yeah,
Yeah, they work. I mean, I wouldn't call that work because you're outside with your flock and you're out under the stars at night. I'm probably glamorizing it, and I could have done it when I was younger, but there's no way I could do it now. I couldn't be out in the weather at night. No.
don't worry, Mom. We're not going to put you out in a field of sheep, and you know it's your job to keep them all safe, chase all the wolves away.
Yeah, I expect to see a sign under shepherdess looking for work. Yeah, anybody have any jobs for shepherdess? Shepherdess, call this number. Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I was going to say, other than that, I really didn't want to work. I wanted to stay home and raise kids, you know. That was number one. Then number two would have been probably, number two is shepherdess.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So when people look back, when you know your life story is told, what would you like people to remember about you? How would you like your, story to be told?
Well, probably that I was agreeable and didn't want to fight with anybody. If I ever got in a fight, which I never got in a fist fight or anything, but just a talking fight, I'd walk away before I'd finish the fight because I just don't like to fight. And probably that'd be one of the things I'm most proud of, that I would walk away. A lot of people would be real embarrassed, but I could walk away from a fight and feel good about it.
Hmm. What other things would you like people to remember about you?
That I was friendly and kind, all the good things that maybe nobody else has seen, but that's what I'd like to have them see.
So, like big picture wise, if you were to, tell somebody what your life was about and, you had 5 minutes or less, what would you say?
Well, I would just say it was a pretty simple life. I went to school, then I went to work as a telephone operator, and that was okay. It paid the bills and stuff. Then I got an opportunity to go to the business office, which was supposed to be a big advancement, and you made more money and more prestige because everybody thinks the operators just are stupid, but they think to work in an office you have to really know how to do it. And it was a hard test. They took me there, and after I walked out, I just knew I didn't pass it. And I thought, well, I'll look at these girls different if they know how to do all those things. But anyway, then I got the job, and I liked it for the first couple years before I began to see through it. And it's all the things I didn't like kind of gathered together. Their idea of making things good was making it look good on paper. They didn't really care if the customer got the service, just as long as it looked like they got it, stuff. So I didn't enjoy that, and I went back to being an operator and took it easy and took as much time off. Got to retire when I was 50 and collecting my pension now. And I've been collecting the pension. Well, I retired in 82, and so over 30 years I've been drawing pension.
You retired in 82 and now you're 82?
That's good, Mike. I didn't get that connection. Yeah. But time to tell the story now that I'm 82.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you look back on your life, you define it, when I ask you to talk about your life and what you would want people to know about it, you talked about your career and your work life. Is that what you think was the most important thing about your life?
No, probably the least important, but the most important to most people. Probably still trying to please other people. I mean, I never really cared about...
Then what was important to you?
The family and stuff I enjoyed. When I look back and you ask me what were some of my favorite times, I think playing with Johnny was some of my favorite times because he was just 8 years younger than me, and it was enough that I could take him on the bus to see Dad in Oakland and stuff like that. And we were just really good friends. And I was so glad when he came, because that kind of broke up Dad with having so much power over me, But yeah, I would say more the family. And then I had expected to go on to have my own family, kind of like that, but that never happened. So circumstances put me back in work again. I would so much rather have stayed home with you and raised you, and had more children if it had been compatible. But I've never been sorry that I divorced Johnny, because he was not a good husband, not a good provider. I mean, I guess he was just good looking and fun. I was young.
Hey, there's something to be said for good looking and fun.
Yeah, well, and that's what he had to offer. And I really liked it at the beginning, but I just didn't want to put up with that all my life. I don't think he would have put up with that with me all my life either. But anything else that you want to know?
So, family's important to you, more so than your work. When you would want people to look back on your life and say, oh yes, this is what I know about Vi. you'd want them to say what?
Well, there's not a lot of good things I could say about
Oh, come on. Well, I'm sure there are. Think of one thing.
Well, see, I was starting to say I used to be friendly, but people seemed like they took advantage. Everybody just dumped on me then. You know, I would listen. I was a good listener. I would listen to all their stories, get sick. They would feel fine and go away. So eventually I just really kind of quit talking to people and stuff like that.
So you didn't want to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist and help people with their problems because that wasn't fun for you.
No.
But what would you like people to think of you, if they just had a thought or two about your life, what would you want that to be?
She would have liked to have stayed home and taken care of her family. She didn't get to have the kind of life she thought she'd have, but she made do. She had a lot of friends, and I had a lot of fun with them, but I didn't think I'd, at 40, still be running around like a teenager, which I did, and it turned out fun. I mean, I had a lot of fun with it, but it wasn't what I set out to do or anything like that,
Is that like going to San Francisco and LA to theater and...
Yeah, and just friends in town. Like Stephanie was one of my friends, and we did a lot of stuff together. Went to concerts. On the concerts, I'm glad I always went to those. That was a big thing in my life when I started going to the concerts, and I almost didn't go because I just figured I was too old, but I was only 35 or 36 or something. So when I got that free ticket at the, what is her name?
Janis Joplin?
Janis Joplin concert, yeah. That's when I walked in to get tickets for you and Pat, she just said, everyone over 35 can have a free ticket if you want it. And so I just took it, because I knew I could go with you guys. And another woman who was over 35 was in there with me. And I said, Helen, they're free, do you want one? And she just said, heavens no. Just like, my God, why would I want to go to a concert? But they're some of the best things I did, going to the concerts every Friday night with Bev. She was older than me.
Yeah, what concerts did you go to?
And we started with Janis Joplin.
Oh, big names.
Yeah, the big names. And then Moby Grape came the next week or something, so we went and saw that. And by that time, we were both hooked into them, and we went to all the rest. Whatever came, we saw those Chambers Brothers and the Doors, of course. Never got to see Mick Jagger's or the Beatles. I didn't see those two. But whatever came through on Friday night was brought by Bob Love. You probably remember that name. And they were always good. So we started going. That was one of the good things I did with my life that came out of my being free and able to do it. If I'd been married and home with a family, I would have been going to concerts, But that and the other thing that I did that I really enjoyed was the bus trips I started taking at the end, because I don't like to drive, and they would take you right there, let you off. You do whatever that you want to do down there. There's one thing I'm sorry because street photographer took my picture walking down the street in San Francisco, and why I didn't get it, I don't know. I just shook my head when he showed me he showed that he had taken a picture of me, and I just went like that and walked on. But that would have been a really wonderful souvenir of San Francisco, because it showed me with my bags and the streets and stuff like that. They took one of Dad, I don't know if he was in San Francisco, but he was walking on some street, and he was downtown. It could have been downtown Fresno, but he had a picture like that of him all when he was in about his 40s, about what I was at that time. So that's one regret. That's a small regret, but...
Any big ones?
Well, the fact that I just had to work all my life, that was a big regret. But as you know, I took a lot of surplus. Whenever there was any time off available, I took it. I didn't work real hard. I worked enough to pay the house off and make buy food and do what I had to. But I wasn't out to make a lot of money either. That was never a goal.
I think you had a good life. You know, I mean, if you look back on it,
Yeah.
you know, you had a lot of, you know, things didn't turn out exactly like you had expected them to, but in life, things never do.
No,
You know, you always have things that happen unexpectedly and things that you would have maybe done differently if you'd, you know,
yeah.
look back and you know then what you know now. But, you know, I mean, you did pretty well. You know, were able to raise a child, and you did a fairly good job of that. And then you were able to do things, you know, going out of town, to theater, music,
Yeah.
had friends, could exercise, you had grandchildren you could play with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say you lived a pretty good life, Mom.
Yeah. Well, I'm not complaining about it, but it isn't the work. It isn't the life I would have set up for myself if I played it out like I would have got married, probably had more children, you know, and been more of a stay-at-home mom than I was.
So if you could have rewound that time around when you were about 18 or so, because that's sort of where a lot of this happened.
Yeah, where it all started going bad.
Because when you were a kid, you really didn't have a lot of control over that. You were just like, you were born into a family that you were born into, and you know, Bev was who she was, and you know, Johnny was who he was, and you know, there's not a whole lot you can do about that. But but at some point, you were able to start making decisions for yourself, and some of those decisions worked out and some of them didn't. So if you were to go back now and knowing what you know now, but you go back then, what would you have done?
Well, of course, the cutoff point is when I married your dad. I mean, he was charming, he was good looking and fun, and all my dates with him were wonderful. And I just looked forward to a continued life of dating and going like that. But if I knew then what I know now, I would never have married him. I probably would have married someone like Richie or someone that was good. He would have given me a good life. I wouldn't have had to work at all.
Bored you to death, though.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have had me. You wouldn't have Simone. You wouldn't have Vanessa.
No, that's true.
None of this would be. I wouldn't be here videoing this.
I need every hair I get.
I'm sorry, I'll get that and give it back to you. So, you know, I mean, things do, like, you know, it's interesting, you know, you go back in the past and, you know, if you were to change things, then, yeah, you would have had a more stable husband and family life. You could have raised your children. You would just had a very different life than what you have right now.
Yeah. See, I can't say that I hated my life. I mean, it wasn't that way. I did things that I really enjoyed. Just like I told you, the concerts, going out of town, the friends just after work going out and having a drink and having some fun and stuff like that. Yeah, that was all good too. Married on February 24th, 1929, just when the stock markets were crashing and everything. But it's their wedding picture. They had a double wedding with his brother and his wife, but their marriage didn't last because they tried to stay with Grandma. And two families in one house just don't work, you know. But Mom and Dad were always considered an ideal couple because she was little and blonde and he was tall and dark and handsome. But yeah, they had good PR all the time. Yeah.
Okay, so that was their picture on their wedding day.
Yeah. This is a picture of my dad on his horse Babe when he was 15 years old. And it is a horse that he really liked. He had another one, Button, that he liked a lot. But he had a lot of horses in his lifetime. They lived on the ranch, and he rode, I think, sometimes to school on his horse or something. But he was too good looking for his own good, probably. Might have got him in some trouble, but I think Mother just chased him because she knew that all the other girls wanted him. That's only my idea. It's my dad right down the street from us in 1938 when they had the big flood, which I'd love to have one again right now. But that's how it looked. It was just that whole area from Bend and Rowell down to Barton or something like that was flooded like that. And everybody talked about the flood in 38. Oh, well, that's Richie. That was a boy I dated. And we went steady in his senior year and my junior year. And he was just a really good kid. And if I had continued going with him and running around with the crowd he ran around with, I'd have been okay. But Bev brought in her wild hooligans, and they were a lot more fun because there was more going on. So I quit going with Richie. I mean, not immediately. I probably went with him a year or something. I went to his prom, and he was just a really good kid and would have been a good husband. I know that's what Mother said after my marriage with Johnny failed. She said, you should have married Richie. He'd have made a good husband. But I wasn't really thinking about husband. I was thinking about fun and running around. I don't know.
So it was Bev that brought these hooligans into your life.
Oh, yeah. Well, she always had rougher friends because, you know, she worked in the packing house and she didn't go any further in school. So she ran around with a rougher crowd. You know?
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, well, there's that good-looking devil that ruined my life. I can't say it, but he does still look good to me. I mean, I wouldn't say, God, how could I ever think he was good-looking? Because I still think he looks good now. And he was charming. He was all those things. My mother used to say he could probably talk his way into a job as fast as he could talk his way out of it. Like in the same sentence, he would, oh, yes, we'd like to hire you. Oh, and then he comes on with something else. But I don't really, I guess I do think of it as a mistake, but in my heart, it seemed like the right thing to do at that time. Oh, yeah, that's Los Angeles, when I was living down there for a short time. And the girl on the end, very far left from me, was the only one I knew in that group. And her husband worked with my husband, and they had a 20-30 club meeting or something. So that's the wives of all the husbands that were there.
What is a 20-30 club?
That's for men between 20 and 30. And so they meet once a month or something like that. Some of those wives got pretty wild. There was swimming in the ocean afterwards, and they all had the same kind of bathing suits, a two-piece bra and panties, so that's what, I didn't go in the water. Well, I didn't know them very well. Maybe they always did that, I don't know. But I didn't really know and run around with those people very much. Oh, this is me about 12 or 13, I'd say. Looks like I've got a full body of hair, which I never did. It had to be curled or something to come out like that. And that just looks innocent and sweet, like a 12 or 13-year-old girl should look. I'm pleased with it. I mean, it isn't something that's glamorous or say how beautiful she is. But it just looked like somebody who doesn't know what she's getting into, which was true, you know. Starting to grow up, you can't. Well, one time I remember Bev and I were talking, and she was saying she couldn't wait to grow up. And I said, I never want to grow up. And she said, oh, God, how horrible, you are going to grow up, you know, or something like that. But I never was one that couldn't wait till I was old enough to date or, you know, wanted to be older to drink or anything like that. I would have probably been happy to have been 12 the rest of my life. That's Twin Peaks over San Francisco. And that's Dad in the middle, me on the left, and Bev on the right. And you had a full scenic view of San Francisco from up there. And the guy that took us up there colored those pictures himself. He painted them. They aren't colored film, so he just did all the painting, all the coloring and stuff on that too. The only other person that's noticed that has been Becky, because she saw him and she said, right away, she said, who did the coloring on him? And so I told her. And it was a guy that was he worked in downtown San Francisco. And he took us up there because he said it had the best view. And I really figured by now they'd probably have houses all over it, but Mike says no, because he looked at it and it still looks like it looks there. Oh yes, I can't tell you too much about that because Bev and I weren't talking too much. One of them is Bev on the left. That's me with the bonnet on the right. And yeah, the dog made both the pictures I see. I still have that dog in a closet somewhere. And a broken leg is his only problem. Oh well, I'm a little older there. And it looks like I know a little bit more about life. And it's one that I think they took another one that I didn't like. This is for high school graduation. So I went back to the photographer and had that one done, which looks better. And there again, I mean, it looks like I have tons of hair, which I never have had. Maybe I had more than I thought I did when I was that young. But I like that picture. It looks like a high school girl graduating, glad to get out of school. Yeah. And planning on getting on with her life. Well, I mean, we were lucky enough to have a cabin in Oliver Springs where the temperature was cool all year round. So that was a good place to go for the summer.